Section 3.6, Absolute Value Functions. Understanding absolute value. Recall that in its basic form, f of x, which is equal to the absolute value of x. The absolute value function is one of our toolkit functions. The absolute value function is commonly thought of as providing the distance the number is from 0 on a number line. Algebraically, for whatever the input value is, the output is the value without regard to sign. Knowing this, we can use absolute value functions to solve some kinds of real-world problems. The absolute value function. The absolute value function can be defined as a piecewise function. F of x is equal to the absolute value of x, where we have positive x if x is greater than or equal to 0, or it could be negative x if x is less than 0. Now for example 1, we're using absolute value to determine resistance. Electrical parts, such as resistors and capacitors, come with specified values of their operating parameters: resistance, capacitance, etc. However, due to imprecision in manufacturing, the actual values of these parameters vary somewhat from piece to piece, even when they are supposed to be the same. The best that manufacturers can do is try to guarantee that the variations will stay within a specified range, often plus or minus 1%, plus or minus 5%, or plus or minus 10%. Now suppose we have a resistor rated at 680 ohms, plus or minus 5%. We're going to use the absolute value function to express the range of possible values of the actual resistance. So step 1, we can find that 5% of 680 ohms is 34 ohms. The absolute value of the difference between the actual and the nominal resistance should not exceed the stated variability. So with the resistance, R is in ohms. So how do we find 34 ohms? Well, what we're doing is we're taking plus or minus 5% of 680. Of is the same thing as multiplication. So we convert this 5% into 0.05. So we're taking plus or minus 0.05 times 680, which therefore gives us plus or minus 334 ohms. So what it's saying here is now in order for us to write this as a compound inequality, we would say that R minus 680 is less than or equal to positive 34, or greater than or equal to negative 34, meaning that this is in between negative 34 and 34. And now rewriting it in terms of an absolute value function, it would be the absolute value of R minus 680, which is less than or equal to 34, because the definition of the absolute value of x less than or equal to a constant a is where x is in between negative a and positive a.